sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on a Wednesday, and more news out of the NFL as free agency around the corner next week. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. We got a great interview guest list here for you today. Kelvin Joseph, cornerback in the NFL, joins us, along with former NFL running back Markus Thomas, Coach Markus Thomas, to be exact. Really happy and excited. World Baseball Classic starts tonight. Chinese Taipei against Australia. You don't want to end up missing that here on your local listeners on Fox. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, big news around in the NFL, and we're going to get right up and into it because in Los Angeles, as you know, they love to spend big and they love to roll the dice. So the LA Rams, knowing this is probably going to be Matt Stafford's last year in a Rams uniform and probably in the NFL. So big news report in a big trade. The LA Rams have contacted with the Kansas City Chiefs, and they have acquired cornerback Trent McDuffie. They're going all in on their defense because that is the one position in which they were having such trouble with, the secondary. So Trey McDuffie is moving on from the Kansas City Chiefs, and in return, this is what the Chiefs do best. They sit at a top 10 pick this year. They now have gotten the 29th pick in this draft, a 5th and 6th rounder, and a 3rd rounder for next year's draft. This is what the Kansas City Chiefs do. And I'm going to touch more upon that here on this 2-part segment, but I want to focus on Los Angeles. So you're talking about 2 really smart, competent GMs in both Les Snead and Brett Veach. Now, the only thing is Les Snead understands Matt Stafford is not getting any younger. And at the same time, he's coming off of an MVP season, which that may be his only MVP in his career. And they went in and got Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua as a hit as a draft pick, the run game. And not only that, but yes, they did lose a right tackle in Havenstein. But that's honestly simple and fixable. And what Les Snead has done all through this, and this is where LA takes a huge bite into the gamble, is they've traded away their first-round picks for proven star talent. It's what they've done for years. They went and got Von Miller, they went and got OBJ, and they won a Super Bowl because of it. And not only that, but they took a big swing at Matt Stafford, knowing Detroit. It's been fun. It's been great. But it's time to honestly do Matt Stafford a solid because there wasn't anything that Detroit was really building around up and at that time. And I get all of it. I understand all of it and how this all works. But let's be honest. The Rams, Sean McVay, the whole he's probably going to end up retiring conversation, that's nothing but nonsense. Sean McVay is young. He's going to stick around in this league for as long as he says, I'm done coaching. And look, you could be perfectly fine with it. And to me, I think with the way that the Rams operate is that the only standing first rounder they have is Jared Verse. And he's been a big hit. He's somebody that they're going to end up paying because you got to remember, this defense is young and this defense is now experienced, and it's only going to get better up from here. Cameron Curl, Cameron Kitchens, you're going to need a lot of help up and onto the secondaries, but we also know they're going to need some help as far as their special teams. So the Rams, they strike gold. They're going all in, and they really want to win a Super Bowl this up-and-coming season. Now, how does that work out? Because, again, there are no guarantees by the time that you get into the playoffs, and everybody knows and understands that. But for today, the Rams are a competent, competitive team, as they have been since they've been in Los Angeles, giving up Jared Goff, going and getting Matt Stafford, and then making splash hits by getting Von Miller, OBJ, and here they are again by getting Trent McDuffie. For all the other teams around in the NFL, that may be way too rich in their pockets. And we understand that too, because we know the Chiefs were trying to end up releasing up some cap space, and Patrick Mahomes ending up restructuring his contract. So this is now, what does this mean for the Kansas City Chiefs? The Kansas City Chiefs are not rebuilding. This is what this is telling you right now. This is more of a reload mode than it is of a rebuild mode. And this is what the Chiefs and what every team in the NFL always get concerned about because of how long and how smart the Chiefs front office really is. And they know last year felt very embarrassing because the offensive line was in shambles outside of Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and I would even argue Josh Simmons. And now he's going to be fully healthy. So the biggest thing was they were not going to keep Mike Dana. They were not going to keep Jawan Taylor. And thank God they didn't, because that whole right tackle position was very much questionable. And so now with Trent McDuffie gone, they're going to go and maybe get themselves a corner because they can see themselves getting somebody that is shut down and locked down. And this year's draft is heavily defensive. Secondaries, pass rushers, really good offensive line play, and run game. That's really what this is in this draft. You got Fernando Mendoza, great. He's your number one stud, but is he the be-all and end-all to shape a franchise? That's what we're waiting to see from the Raiders. My opinion is I don't think he is. I think they're going to need a lot more help than what they have right now, but that's the big thing. And in my opinion, I think for what the Chiefs are trying to do, you got swept by one team in particular, and this is always what's happened, is whenever Jim Harbaugh goes into places, he becomes an absolute reckoning threat. Because that's just what he does. You think about his tenure at Stanford when he beat Pete Carroll multiple times as he was in USC. Yeah, embarrassing. And then the time in which he was in San Francisco, beating Seattle, going to a Super Bowl. Eventually, Seattle got the last laugh of it because they won a Super Bowl. But then you go to Michigan, your alma mater, and you end up beating Ohio State for a long stretch until Ohio State, in the end, they recorrected it, and now they're now got the last laugh. And now here with the Chargers, and you swept the Chiefs now this past season, and the Chiefs don't like that. They don't like that at all. And when you got Andy Reid, a smart offensive-minded play caller, and not only that, you bring back Eric Bieniemy as your offensive coordinator, which is the smartest thing that they could do because they realized our offensive line is not great outside of Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Josh Simmons, but we also need to get better at the ground game. We need to get back up and into our roots in what we were working very well with. And I think what it did is that it poked the bear more than anything else when it comes to the Chiefs. So they did not have a problem moving on from Trent McDuffie, as you could see, but this is a classic way of which you get rid of a player. Think about it this way. They moved on from L'Jarius Sneed to go to the Titans, and they upgraded so many picks. The only difference of it is that they were not very heavy up on run game, but I think this year that narrative is about to change. They're going to need to fix the running back room because they really got nothing else for them to really work with. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco, he was fun as a 7th rounder out of Rutgers, had crazy happy feet, but I think he's kind of slowed down a bit because of injuries. The other thing is Brashard Smith, what does he really have? I've heard really good things at K-State, but does he really have the tangibles to help out with a ground game? So the Chiefs, once again, are doing exactly what Kansas City does all the time. When you get into a point where you lost to the Bucs in the Super Bowl, you lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and then you miss the playoffs the next year, you get pissed off and you start making these competent moves in which you're reloading. Because we also know the Chiefs are not even going to be up and in Missouri. They're going to be up and in Kansas. So there's already funding up for it, and they want to keep the Kansas City Chiefs competitive as possible as long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are on this roster and are in this franchise. So Kansas City, they definitely reloaded after trading away Trent McDuffie. Yes, star corner, but they have plenty others. Jaden Hicks, they got plenty of other options up in a corner, and they can go and draft one. And I think the big thing is they didn't really have enough of the salary cap to really pay for a substantial amount of money with Trent McDuffie. It's the same thing that they did with L'Jarius Sneed, and I can understand that. So I think Kansas City, if people really want to be honest, you got to be paying attention to all of this stuff, because I truthfully think this is Kansas City's way of reloading, finding ways in which to get back at most of these players or most of these teams, and it's just what they do. This is the business in which they're in. So I think it's remarkable how you can see this. It's really remarkable. And truth be told, I do think Kansas City, I mean, they may end up competing as much as they possibly can as far as a wild card is concerned, because Denver got better with their defense. The Chargers, of course, they got better. So there are lots of things that are going around up and into the table. But I think in this regard, they're going to be competitive. There are other teams that are smelling blood to try to go and get into the wild card spot. As far as division is concerned, it's going to get competitive, and it's going to continue to get competitive. So there you go. I think, with the way in which this market has really transformed, the NFL has really changed things up about their markets and where we're at, because so much money has really invested and it's building. And I think with the corners market, you got to think about this. If you've got a highly talented defensive player, a corner, defensive tackle, or an edge rusher, I personally would like to have a competent edge rusher, a run-stopping defensive tackle, and then somebody who can honestly communicate up and into the secondaries for both the slot, the man-to-man, and then even just being the freebie out in the back to where you could really see with what the quarterback is doing. So there's lots of ways in which you can build a defense up and around. So I just think this is just what Kansas City does. So they've reloaded. Trent McDuffie out to Los Angeles. They get the 29th pick, 5th and 6th, and a 3rd rounder for next year. And Kansas City is going to load up a lot of their assets, because to me, I don't even think that this could honestly be the only move left. I think Kansas City, you got to really think about Chris Jones, the cap hit. Travis Kelce, what's the question mark up and on that? There's going to be tons of reloading. Next week couldn't even come up any faster. So the Chiefs have made that move. And again, this is the week in which that you got to tag the players or releasing to open up cap spaces in order to now buy new players by next week. It's going to be an absolute madhouse in free agency. So I'm excited for all of it. And I'm sure all of you guys are too. So I can't wait for it. Up and around the corner, Markus Thomas, former NFL running back, going to be discussing more about the Philadelphia Eagles, the state of A.J. Brown, and what's going to happen up from there. Plus, more news about Maxx Crosby the latest teams right now who people are believing could be the destinations for Maxx Crosby, as the Raiders are also trying to figure out what they need to do as far as reloading and building up the best potential team for new head coach Clint Kubiak. And what's the drama in Los Angeles between Luka and LeBron James? We'll get to more of that here up and onto the show right after this. All right. Well, 20 is playing. We're already off. Starts tonight. NFL free agency starts next week. There is so much action that's happening up and around the leagues. But that's where our partners at Payday Fantasy is there for you. For your own personal player pick'em fantasy app, all on your mobile device and your handheld devices, and download it on Google Play and the App Store, and get yourself signed up. Don't miss out on the action that Payday Fantasy has for you every day, every week. Payday Fantasy is a fun way to get you connected and also choosing your favorite players or your best lineup to get your best payout, because that's what it's all about, paydays, right? When you go online to Payday Fantasy or download and sign up, free $5 entry just by utilizing the app. Free $5. Try us out. Also, 100% deposit matchup of up to $100 just by using the promo code SNAKE as the promo code. That's all it is. SNAKE is the promo code for 100% deposit matchup of up to $100 guaranteed, because we want you to enjoy the fun and all the buzzes around Payday Fantasy. So sign up, pick the player, pick the odds, sit back and relax and get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
So a news topic that has been coming around and buzzing around in the NFL, and it involves Raiders edge rusher Maxx Crosby. So as we mentioned before, Max not quite happy with the organization and especially with the direction and kind of more the structure set, and I'm not surprised of it at all. But there are a few teams who have already started making phone calls inquiring about Maxx Crosby's availability. So of the teams, and we'll discuss it a little bit more with Markus Thomas, who's going to be up and around the corner. We'll take a rain check with Kelvin Joseph and get him back up and onto the show here soon. But so 3 teams who apparently, from according to reports, are amongst the teams interested in Maxx Crosby: the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Chicago Bears. Let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles. First of all, Howie Roseman is a wizard and a genius. He knows exactly how to manipulate a lot of different trade packages. It's just the business in which he's great at. The other thing is, you saw with what the Eagles' defense and their pass rush looked like with Jalen Phillips once they acquired him. It looked much more competent, looked much more ferocious, and they were finally getting into the quarterback. Because remember, this was also a team in which they moved on from Josh Sweat. They also moved on from Milton Williams. And Milton Williams was the only one amongst the ones that have departed from Philadelphia who made it into back-to-back Super Bowls. Josh Sweat with Arizona, yeah, they got him a really good defensive pass rush, but Arizona is just dealing with a lot of crap. And we're going to figure out, too, what's going to happen with Kyler Murray. But the way I'm seeing it is that Philadelphia is not afraid to take big swings. They've been doing this for so long. They tried to take a big swing at Micah Parsons before he went to Green Bay because they realize and they know Micah is a one-of-a-kind, and you could do so much with him, and it honestly takes the pressure off of his other duo at the other side of the edge. So that's the one thing Philadelphia has been shown to do. And Maxx Crosby, he is the heart and soul of any defense that you can honestly put around him. He's a competitor. He wants to play. Philadelphia, an emotionally driven organization, they know exactly how to play it. And to also understand this even more is Philadelphia, of course, they want to be picking on their arch rivals more than anything else. Which arch rivals is that? That would be the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Commanders. They want to get the best out of all three of them. And that's just the way that it works. And then there's the Cowboys, who, just like the Eagles, also want to get back at their division rivals. Because here's the other thing. The Cowboys, my biggest thing is that their draft picks, you also have to come to realization, is they've already gotten rid of a couple of players. They gotten rid of Micah Parsons to start the year to go to Green Bay, and they needed to fix up their defensive tackle because they were not stopping the run for anything. And so once they traded away Micah, they got Kenny Clark. They were not quite done with that because that's when they went and got their one-star Quinnen Williams from the Jets. And now he's happy to be there in Dallas. So you know that you're going to eventually have to pay Quinnen Williams top dollar money. And you're already restructuring the high contracts of CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott because you also are franchise tagging George Pickens, which that franchise tag's not cheap either. That's $27, $28 million right up and off the bat just on a franchise tag. And who knows if that's going to lead to a long-term contract length. But they also gotten rid of Trayvon Diggs. They figured, you know what? We can't afford it. And at the same time, it was pretty much time to move on. I know Trayvon Diggs can be a really good, valuable asset somewhere else. But I'll be completely honest with all of you guys. Some of this stuff with Trayvon Diggs and even with, Stephon Diggs, I'll get a little bit more into that discussion. But the Cowboys needed to reshape their defense. Honestly, they needed more juice and they need more competency on that side of the ball. It's no question. And it's also no surprise that the Cowboys themselves want to go out on full swing and get someone like a Maxx Crosby. I mean, that's just something, you look at Jerry Jones, can he afford to do that? Are they honestly going to be that competent to end up getting their star pass rusher? Because you got DeMarvion Overshown that you want to take most of that pressure off. You got a couple of other really good options that's up front in the defensive front. But I think with the Cowboys, I don't know. It might be too rich, in my opinion, with getting Maxx Crosby. But if they make it work, they make it work. And we'll see what that looks like. And then finally, the Chicago Bears. Well, what do you know? We're back in old nostalgic road. Remember the last time when they did this? when Khalil Mack ended up going to the Chicago Bears with Danny Trevathan, Charles Tillman, and then Adrian Amos, and a bunch of other really good players on defense with a Matt Nagy and a Mitch Trubisky team. Yeah, the Bears are back into this conversation now with Maxx Crosby. And the Bears, they are now trying to figure out a few things, because now the bombshell drop that just happened was Drew Dahlman, 27-year-old, had retired. So now they need to look for a center. And what do you know? Tyler Linderbaum is available. So how are they going to now address the one position they thought they fulfilled, and instead he outright retires? That was kind of a fork in the road. But now with the Maxx Crosby thing, this is back to what they were before, when they got rid of a lot of draft picks, a lot of draft capital to send to the Raiders, and that's what turned into Josh Jacobs and a bunch of other impactful players. Remember that. That was what those draft picks were for. And now, do the Bears honestly do this move again? It happened with Khalil Mack. Sure, it worked out. They went into the playoffs. But I'll be honest with you, Mitch Trubisky was not quite the guy in which you thought they'd sell me on amongst Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and a couple others. And that's where Chicago really got the worst of it. Now they have Caleb Williams. You've got a very competent offensive line in which Ben Johnson harped so much he would fix. Do you now go and take a big swing and get an edge rusher? I think it's great. It can happen. But we know the market is going to be outrageous. There's going to be a lot of different salary retentions. There's going to be a lot of different draft capitals shifting forward, left and right. Whether somebody needs a running back, somebody needs a quarterback, or somebody is up there trying to upgrade their offensive line and the defensive structure. That's what they're trying to do. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think it really does. It really is interesting to entertain the idea, but we'll see what happens in the coming days. Maxx Crosby is a really, really talented player, but whomever gets him, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And honestly, he needs a better structure than what he's getting with the Raiders. So joining us, former NFL running back with the Philadelphia Eagles, and is also a coach as well, and is doing great things. Markus Thomas joins us here on the program. Let's start with that, Markus. I went on and basically talked about this Maxx Crosby type of, rumors. The rumors for now until it's actually fulfilled next week. So the three teams amongst them, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Bears. I would make the argument here. Howie Roseman is just a genius and wizard anytime that he wants to manipulate a move. I mean, they tried getting aggressive with getting Micah Parsons out of their division rival. And then, you look at the Maxx Crosby thing, you saw with what they were when they got Jalen Phillips. So in your opinion with this rumor, is this something that's doable, or do you feel like the price range in the capital is just too rich, even for a competent team like Philadelphia?
Nothing is impossible for Howie Roseman. Nothing. This is what we call Howie season. Howie is the Wizard of Philadelphia. This is what he does. This is why he gets paid the big bucks. In my opinion, right now, and don't get it twisted, the price is high, and it should be, because you're talking about Maxx Crosby and people of his ilk. But if there's anybody that can manipulate the money, it's Howie Roseman. And right now, in my opinion, we too far. We just got done with the combine. And of course, there's always one or two people that blow up at the combine. You saw it this year with who was it? The Styles brothers, Lorenzo and Sonny Styles, and there was a couple other ones, the tight end Sadiq. And it makes people kind of shift their priorities. And then the closer we get to the draft, you're gonna start seeing things happen, and people, because it's hard to tell what's your focus. What is Howie focusing on right now? Me as a fan, I know we need a tight end. I don't think Dallas Goedert is going to be here. We got Jalen Phillips in house. Jalen Phillips, he paid dividends last year. For the short term he was there, so I wouldn't mind keeping him. But he's also got an injury history a little bit. So it's a gamble either way you go. I even saw some rumors about Max. Somebody put up Maxx Crosby for AJ Brown, and I was like, that's a tight one. But I don't know. It's too far away. There's too many things that can happen regarding the draft. So there's a lot of pieces that can fall. There's a lot of things that can happen. So I think it's still too far out for somebody to make moves like that. Because I think whatever move is made, there's going to be like draft picks and compensation and stuff like that in the mix, in the package. So once you get a little bit closer to the draft, to the actual draft, I think you'll see where people's visions lie, what their board looks like, things of that nature. And then, I don't put it past Howie to make a deal like that.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I think, Howie Roseman, he's going to make something out of nothing. And at the same time, the way in which, I think about it this way. It's like how I watched the Dodgers manipulating, the deferred comp deal that all other teams could honestly do if you're trying to afford guys like Shohei Ohtani and the rest of it getting talent. Howie just knows how to do it. He's been doing it for so long. So last season was not quite the chapter in which the Philadelphia Eagles wanted to end it in that regard. But I will tell you, as also someone being a former player in this city, Marcus, I felt like Philadelphia, and this works every time with them, they're very emotionally driven to a T. When you think about the Flyers got to play better hockey. The Phillies just got to win a World Series. The Sixers got to quit stinking and actually just make it to a final. And then you got the Philadelphia Eagles, just go and win a damn Super Bowl. And they are so emotionally driven, but they are diehard fans for a reason. But when I look at the way in which things were structured, yes, they lose Kellen Moore to being a head coach at New Orleans. The offensive play calling with Kevin Patullo, not great. Now they end up getting Sean Mannion because you're trying to make Jalen Hurts, with what's worked, that hoisted a trophy, into working again, because Saquon Barkley is arguably the most talented running back you'd see in this league. But then you have guys like A.J. Brown, who also, I'm watching on the sidelines, the guys are arguing and emotions are way high. What do you think right now, Philadelphia, the game plan is for this offseason? Because I could see Kansas City's reloading. They just got rid of Trent McDuffie. What is Philadelphia's move now to really stay competitive in the NFC?
We're doing the same thing because I don't think it's a good idea to get rid of A.J. Brown. People from the outside looking in tend to follow the national narrative, what they see on ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, Colin Cowherd, Pat McAfee, all of that type of stuff. But all of those people are not tied into Philadelphia. And we here in Philadelphia, they love A.J. Brown. And I don't understand. And even people in Philadelphia, they want a narrative. And this is just my opinion. But we were the epicenter of the diva culture because we live TO. So if any fan base knows what diva culture is, it should be the Philadelphia Eagles, right? But this is so far from that, it's not even funny. Yeah. And this is one thing that I always bring up, and I don't say it flippantly, and I mean it for people to really look at it. A.J. Brown is a person who has dealt with mental health issues, suicide, things of that nature. Go look up when he was with Tennessee and he talked to the lady at his press conference, and go look it up. He's always been about that. And I say that to simply say this. Guys that have to deal with that, they have to deal with what they have to deal with in a certain way that works for them. Full stop.
Yep.
Full stop. So if you don't like the way he tweets, I don't give a damn. As long as he shows up on the field and does what he has to do, then people take it to the next level. He's got to be a cancer in the locker room. No, he's not. They don't vote you a captain if you are a cancer. That does not happen. So all of the stuff that you heard, that's from the media, that's from the outside looking in. And then you got to look at A.J. Brown never said anything that was incorrect. Never. The only thing he said was, you can go all the way back to 2023 when we won a game against the Carolina Panthers. We barely won. We barely beat them. Carolina was a bad team, and we had like 103 yards of offense or something like that. And he said the passing game has to get better. That's what started off this whole thing. And then everybody crashed out because he said it. And I was like, he wasn't wrong. Everything he said has been spot on. If you don't like that he tweets, I understand that. But there's a difference between somebody expressing themselves how they feel they got to do it and somebody being a cancer in the locker room. Those are two totally different universes. And for some reason, there's a lot of people, even here in Philadelphia, that jumped on that bandwagon. I'm like, what the hell are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And people tend to think that everything is all sunshine and rainbows in the locker room. A locker room is a family. And your audience that's listening right now, in your own family, you do not get along with everybody in your family all the time.
Very true.
You fight with your family, you fight with your brothers if you got siblings, all of that type of stuff. It does not mean you don't love them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens in a locker room. So everything is not going to be roses. Everything is not. You see the blow ups on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
Happens on every team, every game, every week.
Yep.
They just don't put it on ESPN because it's not AJ Brown. So people kind of blow it up. Are they gonna move him? I don't think they will. Because the Eagles are not a better team if he's gone. If you do move him, what are you gonna get for him? And whatever you get, are they gonna have the production that's walking out the door? To me, that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you get and what name you get. You can get a first-round pick, and that first-round pick might not turn around until 3 years from now.
Yeah.
We got a bird in the hand right now that wants to be here. That's out of his own mouth.
Yep.
So I don't get caught up in what the media says, especially when it's people that are not tied in to Philadelphia, because most people on the outside looking in, all they get is a bunch of papers that their production assistant shoved in front of their face. So
yes.
All they reading is just stats. They don't have context. They're not there. Most of these guys don't even watch the games.
Yeah.
So I take all of that with a grain of salt. I'm going to believe it with my own eyes. I think AJ Brown is going to be here until I see otherwise.
That's where in obviously in this generation's terms, that's where you call it clout chasing, in my opinion.
Exactly.
You think, and so when I heard the news about, somebody, I don't know who wanted it out there, but somebody wanted it out there when that was the news story about what if they moved on from Jalen Hurts to get Tanner McKee? I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like this is the part where I'm like, okay, this isn't even logical football we're talking about here. This is more of you're trying to implement back the whole Carson Wentz and Nick Foles debate once again, and then look at how that happened. Now you're going to be back at square one again. I do think that with A.J. Brown, he's a talented receiver. I mean, for people to pass on both him and DK Metcalf, I will make the argument that the difference between two of those players who both went in the same colleges at Ole Miss is at least A.J. Brown will be emotional when you want to be competitive, but he never gives up on his teammates.
Correct.
I don't think there were, and here's the thing. Another thing that you can even recall was when he had that interview about Saquon and said, look, Saquon's not even playing his best. Neither am I. But what difference does that make if we're out there grinding and playing our best? So I think there's a part of me that I don't think really is the logical answer to trading away A.J. Brown. But if you did, you got to make it worthwhile. I agree with you there. But I feel like this. I feel like if A.J. Brown was taken out of this roster, I feel like the Eagles, they would try to implement what some teams do. Dual tight end sets, blocking, receiving. Fix your offensive line to open the gaps for either Saquon or Jalen Hurts to utilize their legs in this sense, right? And then you have the big play receiver in Devontae Smith. But then who do you now have to go up and get somebody on the outside hash marks? Because you're going to need somebody there on that front. So hypothetically, if this was to happen, is there a name that you feel like may not be equivalent to A.J. Brown's talent stature, but somebody who could at least relieve the headache of finding someone that can catch from the outside hash marks.
Not that I can think of right off the bat. And that's how you explained it is exactly how I look at it. I go back to when we mollywopped the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had the Chiefs defense. They have to make a choice. Who are you gonna focus on? You're either gonna focus on Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, or Saquon Barkley. Pick one. They picked Saquon Barkley. And what their logic was, and I understand it, we're gonna make Jalen Hurts beat us in the air.
Yep.
Guess what he did? Saquon Barkley had 48 yards in the Super Bowl?
Yep.
But he did catch a couple clutch passes.
Mm-hmm.
So who is going to be if AJ Brown walks? Hope he doesn't, but if he goes away, if Howie gets rid of him, who are you going to bring in that a defense has to game plan? That's the key. You can't just bring in a guy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. We had what's his name? Your boy from Washington that we brought over.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Jahan Dotson. Yep.
Jahan Dotson, and he was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But could he be a legit number two? And this is where you got to look at people and you got to be honest and say, okay, yeah, I know he was a first round pick, but if you strip that away and just look at the production on the field, is he a game plan?
Right.
Do defenses go into the week against the Philadelphia Eagles thinking we got to stop Jahan Dotson? We got to stop this guy or that. We got to figure out what we're going to do with Dallas Goedert.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So whoever we get, or if AJ stays, he's still a problem. He's still somebody you have to worry about. And now we still got a four-headed monster on offense. The problem with our offense last year that nobody wants to bring up was we had a Jeff Stoutland problem. I didn't think I would ever have to say that. Our run blocking was trash.
Yes.
The whole year. That was the problem. All of our big splash play runs, if you go back and look at them, there were very few that hit inside the tackles. It was always Saquon Barkley making somebody miss 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, or it was Tank Bigsby planting his foot and bouncing it outside and committing to it. Those were our biggest runs. We could not run inside the tackles to save our life. And it made our offense one-dimensional. All the defense had to do, the linebackers didn't respect the run. And that's a problem when you're trying to throw the ball. That left Jalen exposed. That left the tight end exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't get anything outside because that's where you got to figure out a different way to beat us. And the linebackers just ran free because they didn't respect Saquon Barkley. He couldn't get nothing going.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think about it this way because I know with what we mentioned with the Maxx Crosby, conversations, I would make the argument, Marcus, that what I'm seeing from the offensive line, you're not going to have Lane Johnson for very long. He's eventually going to end up retiring, and we know that a lot of the treading is pretty much wearing out. Then you also have, Cam Jurgens up front and a few others that even Jordan Mailata, they're trying their absolute hardest. Now, many people say, well, what if we brought back Mekhi Becton? Well, you don't have the same O-line coach that you had previously going into a different organization. But, however, that doesn't mean that they can't address this. So when I look at this draft, one thing's for certain. We know that what we saw from the defense out of Jalen Phillips was exactly with what we saw when Milton Williams and even Josh Sweat was on this roster. And I said this when the season started. Who other in your linebacking core could you find in the free agent market or in the draft that you could replace that if Zach Bond left? You can't. That's where I felt like Zach Bond was the right answer. And they could figure out edge rushing later because Jahad Campbell's got to figure this out. And you got a young defense that quite isn't getting paid yet from Jordan Davis and with Jalen Carter, but there's still time on the table. I would make the argument this offensive line, like you mentioned, with as far as run blocking, because the pass block, I mean, you got Jalen who knows how to run.
Correct.
So I think if you look at this draft class, I would make the argument somewhere up and in the middle of the pack, Philadelphia is going to want to be there to wanting to take either someone up and into the interior sides to provide the run blocks, to give them open space so Saquon could do what Saquon does best.
Well, the rumor is that Mannion is a fan of zone read runs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of zone read runs. I'm old school, bro. I played in the 90s. I played with Randall and all of them guys. And I remember watching Terrell Davis with the Broncos zone reads all the way down the field. And all that is you block the gap over or go up and get the man in front of you if you have a gap. Go get the linebacker or DB or whoever's popping up. And what you do is you block your zone, make your assignment, and you let the running back be a running back. There is no hole. There is no 2-4-6 or nothing like that. Right. You give the guy the ball as deep as humanly possible and let him decide where he wants to go.
Agreed.
That's how Terrell Davis did it when he got to 2,000 yards that year, and he was the MVP.
That's right.
And that's I love that. I don't understand why we don't do it. We didn't run, like I said, we were bouncing a lot of stuff outside, but there were not a lot of scheduled runs outside the tackles, and I couldn't figure that out for the life of me. I didn't understand it. We still, heck, since we lost Darren Sproles, we still haven't had a tight screen game. Mm-hmm. We had DeAndre Swift, and we didn't even throw him screens. So we got to get over this hump. I'm hoping Sean Mannion is bringing enough young ideas that he can look at his personnel and figure out a way to get the best out of the personnel. What I think a problem is in a lot of these old school coaches is because they have their way of doing it, and they take a team and they try to fit the team to their way of doing it, and that's not how you win. You find your guys on the team, let your playmakers make plays, put them on the field, and find out what they do best and let them do it.
Agreed.
I remember when we had J.J. Arthega-Whiteside. He was terrible. But he was also like 6'3", 6'4". Both of his parents were Olympians. Listen, put that kid in the game, in the red zone, run him a corner to the corner of the end zone, throw the ball up high and let him go up and dunk with two hands. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. That's all you do with him. Don't have him do nothing else.
Yep.
So find out what your guys do best and just let them do it. So hopefully we can get into that and try to, instead of trying to stick a, round peg in a square hole, it just don't work. And it's to our detriment that we keep trying to do that.
Yeah. No, I think this season for the Philadelphia Eagles, much like Kansas City, they're pissed off. They want to get better at what really, they kept fighting tooth and nail to try to make something work when very much of you cannot be heavily reliant up and on one thing that is what got you back into this position back in 23 in some of these instances. So should be interesting for Philadelphia. I'm curious of what the offseason moves are going to look like, but I'm keeping an eye on Howie Roseman. Every time when he makes a deal, it always seems to be one of those deals that roll the dice, but then works out in the end because Philadelphia now, they're rejuvenated, they're energized, and they're back to where they want to be at to be competitive, especially in their conference. Marcus, appreciate you for coming on by, man.
Got it, brother.
We'll see what happens with Philadelphia, but this should be a fun next week. I know you're going to be busy with this whole thing as usual, but it's a fun time of year, man. Enjoy yourself, take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon for next season.
You got it. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think Philadelphia, that's just one of those things. Is Philadelphia's going to find a way to figure things out, and you got to, because the minute that you end up closing the season the way that was is not the chapter that you want to end it on. So going to be back here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be talking more about the relationship between LeBron James and with Luka Doncic, with what's happening there, and then also more news around the NFL and more so towards a specific player, which we know that there may be question marks into his personal stuff, but we'll see what happens up and in the end. back here on the Snake Sports Talk Show.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
America's pastime is officially hitting the international pool. As it's that time again, the World Baseball Classic is officially arrived. As the first game tonight, check your local listings on Fox. Chinese Taipei takes on Australia for the Pool C. Pool A. That starts at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific on Fox. Check your local listings for the World Baseball Classic and stay up to date on all throughout the action, March 4th through the 7th. So I apologize to all of our listeners out in the Atlanta area. We will end up having more audio checks, and we had some technical difficulties, but we will have them fixed up here for you. But we'll probably end up seeing if we can get the audio version up for you to listen to more of the interview of what went on here with Coach Markus Thomas. So I want to transition up to this. So LA, as you know, is a stars-driven city. Much like Hollywood, they love their Hollywood stars, actors, actresses, whether it's from Tom Cruise to Sydney Sweeney. We love it all in Los Angeles. But when it comes to our sports teams, New York, like on the East Coast, there's no room for underachieving and underperforming. And from what I'm seeing with this in Los Angeles, the Lakers, and you already know this ownership that also owns the Dodgers, is not quite, they're not building it up around with LeBron James. Luka Doncic is their main pillar and focus. I don't think the Lakers, truthfully, are built to being a championship caliber team quite yet. And I think that's what the Lakers ownership is trying to prove, is that this is not the same Lakers squad that originally won titles, didn't give a rip about what it was going to take to get there. And so now with Luka Doncic, their cash cow, much like the Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani as their cash cow, LeBron James, He's getting older and not getting any younger, but it's very impressive of what he's doing at his age. But I'll make this argument. He has been in the mogul stage for quite a long time. Since the last championship, the Lakers won in the bubble. And since then, what have the Lakers really have looked like? I mean, they get swept by Denver, and they're not quite the most intimidating, let alone the winning times Lakers like they once were. And let alone even the Kobe and Shaq show years. So all that this is doing is it's come to fruition. LeBron James, they're done with this relationship. And you saw also in one of the games that they played at, Luka was not quite happy with LeBron James as soon as he was exiting off the floor and was going right up to the bench. Shots were fired, and you could see Luka really pissed off and ticked off, and he was not having any of it. And LeBron James, who we know as a mogul, as big star-studded, like, he's just kind of doing his own thing. And we know the relationship is pretty much as good as gone at this point, and that's fine. That's what the Lakers, this is why they brought in Luka in the first place. Thanks a lot, Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks. But this is what you do. And the Dodgers, you got to think about it. They were winning division titles for such a long time. But then they had to ask themselves, we want to win a World Series. How in the world are we going to do that? Well, once you got enough of the money, because Los Angeles, let's be honest, it's a big money market. The West Coast is where it's at. It's not like, what it used to be with the hot stove league with the Yankees and the Red Sox. So the Lakers are also doing the same exact thing because Denver, OKC, Indiana, and then rival Boston with the Celtics. You do not want to be the team that ends up short on the stick. That's why the Lakers, they're done with this with LeBron James. And from what I'm told, now LeBron wants to end up back in Cleveland. My wife loves this show, Love is Blind, right? And, there's the experiment is one thing, right? You try to prove that love is blind, okay? But there's also some things that you can't even ignore. So you can't ignore the fact that LeBron James leaving Cleveland to go to Miami, teaming up with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, winning titles, was that he wanted to be a champion. I get that. But then also left Cleveland in this predicament to where Kyrie Irving, number 1 overall pick, and Cleveland was back and down on the bottom. That was where they were for a long time before LeBron got there, the chosen one. Then comes back to Cleveland, wins a championship title, wins it for Akron, and then leaves again and goes to the Lakers. And now the Lakers pretty much dump him because it's LeBron. And now he wants to end up back in Cleveland. It's really interesting. Either the relationship works or it doesn't. And in my opinion, it feels a lot like it was sweet of a fling when they won a championship. But now we've had a reality check and realizing here comes all the red flags. Yeah, we ain't doing this no more. So the NFL, like I said, the free agent market is happening next week. And just recently, the New England Patriots ended up releasing Stephon Diggs. So let me be very clear in what the free agent market is really going to be here to do. Lots of teams are going to be active. We know this for a fact. But we also know that many teams are also going to be kind of nitpicky with the players that they get. Because in my opinion, when I looked at this with Stephon Diggs, the Patriots were in their second year with Drake May, brand new coach, and Mike Vrabel, which Robert Kraft made the smart decision to bringing in Mike Vrabel. You knew you made the wrong decision when you ended up bringing in Gerard Mayo. And I mean, he was a really good player, coaching, very much overwhelmed. So with Stephon Diggs now out of New England, my biggest thing is that Stephon will end up somewhere, but we also know the latest allegations with some of the baby mamas, and I'm not going to get into too deep of details, but I also know that Stephon, in many of these offenses, will he be available, and will he be a valuable target to a team that could utilize him? Because remember, when Stephon left Minnesota, all I know is that, to me, I didn't quite see him as the biggest be-all and end-all receiver. I thought he was more geared for big plays, and that's it. Then you look at Buffalo with Josh Allen with a cannon of an arm, and it worked out just fine. And then eventually he left, goes to Houston to help out C.J. Stroud. Well, he wasn't even much of the biggest benefactor there either, because you've heard of Nico Collins, and then you've heard of a bunch of other receivers. And so I think Stephon, when you look at this with New England, Kyle Williams looks like a very promising talent. I can agree with that wholeheartedly. You also have Demario Douglas, and you've also got Kayshon Boutte. So there are some young receivers that you have, but you would like to have a receiver that's over the top that can really help out with the talent pool. So Stephon Diggs, at this point in his career, having a lot of distractions, and not to mention, you got into a Super Bowl, but unfortunately, the offense just was not quite clicking. Lots of pass rushes. It was unbearable. But now, anybody that's needing up and in a receiver, honestly, Stephon Diggs is mostly going to be a one-trick pony for a team that's going to need a big play. That's the reality of it in the NFL. Whether you call it cutthroat or whatever, this is just the reality check of the business. Stephon Diggs, he can make big plays, but he's not going to be somebody I'm going to be surrounding a lot of my offense around. He's going to be somebody that I'm going to utilize when I know I need a big play somewhere. And there's lots of teams that could really utilize a big play receiver. So I really think that when it comes to the market, because there are a lot of receivers up out there, and you know that Dallas made the right decision by franchise tagging George Pickens, but that's going to come with a cost itself. So I think what's happened, the receiver market is probably going to be pretty big, but it's not as big of a splash as you and I think. Like, what is Tyreek Hill going to look like post-injury? Stephon Diggs, could he be a reliable asset to somebody? It feels a lot to me like Keenan Allen, after he left the Chargers to go to Chicago and help out with Caleb Williams for 1 year, he comes back and understands the plan. So he might end up being back in L.A. So what it feels a lot like is the receiving room is so cluttered, but there's lots of talented players left and right. But it mostly is because you have to fit the style of offense. That is the goal. So Stephon Diggs out of New England, I feel like it was a lot of just situational play, helping out our young receivers, and then finding the balance up from there. And now you're going to take your businesses elsewhere, but don't expect yourself to end up getting big money, like big receiver money. It's not going to happen. The older you get in this predicament, the chances are it's very unlikely you'll get that big top dollar money. I know the receiver market could sometimes look like this, but don't let the contract situation manipulate you. Because honestly, look at what's happening with the Niners. They could be moving on from Juwan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk. The Dolphins already moved on from Tyreek Hill. Look at what they've really accomplished after all these years. Even once he got there, Kansas City, they won more Super Bowls. So sometimes you got to be able to pick your poison here. And that's what it really comes down to. He could be a valuable asset to somebody, but he is not the cake layer that I'm going to bite into and say, that is a delicious piece of cake. More importantly, you're going to be somebody's icing on it. You're not the main bake. And I think that's what it's come down to, and that's the reality check. All righty, folks. Really appreciate all of you guys for joining us. Next week is going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot more interviews along the way. And much more to talk about. It's just like when you watch Storage Wars. The bids are going to be open for all 32 teams, and it's time to make those bids and who is going to win a lot of these players and to build up their rosters. Check it out for next week. We're there with you as well and giving you updates all throughout free agency. Join us here next week on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next week on this edition of the show. Take care, everyone.